It's Valentine's time again, everyone, and to help celebrate, Harley Quinn is back again on HBO Max with her very own problematic Valentine's Day special. No, really, that's the name. I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any and all comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that in mind, let's not waste any more time, shall we? Let's get into it. The first thing of note you may recognize is that this special goes out of its way to borrow the framing device from famous rom-com classic When Harry Met Sally by having a bunch of different couples from throughout the DC universe sit down and be interviewed. Cartoons really love riffing on that one, don't they? These segments run the gambit from fun in-jokes about comic book continuity, like how Aquaman and Mira met, as well as some fun matchmaking with Killer Croc and the Enchantress. Hey, they were both on that movie version of the Suicide Squad, weren't they? As well as some genuinely sweet and, dare I say, actually romantic little asides with Superman and Lois. Even Michael Ironside returns and gets in on the action as Darkseid for one of my favorite gags of the episode, Darkseid is in love. By far, though, the best segment and the one that everyone's already talking about is the one with Hawkman and Hawkgirl, because they just so happen to be voiced by Quinta Brunson and Tyler James Williams, aka the two lovable teachers from Abbott Elementary, another show that just so happens to be produced by Harley's own Patrick Schumacher and Justin Halpern. God, I hope these two come back at some point and reprise these roles. They're just so good together and so good as this show's version of the Hawks. Now, where is Harley while all of this is going on? Well, the main plot involves her trying to go all out to impress Poison Ivy during their very first Valentine's Day together as a couple. Of course, Ivy being Ivy, at best, she doesn't really go out for days like this, and at worst, she sees Valentine's Day as a massive genocide for roses and other pretty flowers. But Harley will simply just not be dissuaded. She wants to make this the most amazing VD day ever, even if it means staging a fake robbery at the couple's favorite restaurant and long-running joke, Mama Macaroni's. Sadly, when this fails to elicit the reaction Harley wanted, she begins to spiral. Again, another reminder that despite how far Harley has come in building a healthy relationship, she still carries a lot of the bad habits and baggage from her time with the Joker. Mainly the feeling that she always needs to one-up herself, always need to be performing or auditioning for love. While Ivy is certainly thankful for everything Harley is doing for her, she maintains that this is still only one of her top 3 Valentine's Days. Well, okay, Harley actually needs to steal the lasso of truth to get that last part out of her, but still, top 3. Now, if you were wondering if we were going to see any of the fallout from Season 3 with Harley joining the Bat family and Ivy going off to join the Legion of Doom, this special doesn't really touch on any of that stuff. We do actually get to see Bruce in jail, but beyond that, it's clear that all of those storylines are being tabled for Season 4, which is fine by me. Just, be warned now, don't go in with your hopes too high. This special also comes packing some very hard-working B and C plots. First off, there is the very fluid Clayface looking for love online, only to get rolled in Crime Alley by Captain Boomerang. I'd say a member of the Rogues should be doing more with his life, but let's face it, it's Boomer. This is exactly where he belongs. In his grief, Clayface ends up actually falling for his other half after Boomerang cuts him in two. And yes, every joke you can think of about an overly narcissistic actor loving themselves so much that they threaten to very literally disappear up their own ass is on full display in this episode. It's also kind of a nice mythology gag too, when we remember back in Season 1, Clayface lost a hand that also proved to be sentient and developed a whole relationship with Jim Gordon. The gag further explores the idea that Clayface and his lower half love each other so much but can never touch, because if they do, they'll be reabsorbed into one another, so their love must remain unrequited. My favorite subplot, though, no surprise, actually belongs to Bane. He too can't seem to find anyone to share this special day with until he meets Betty, a friendly dominatrix who invites him along on a job, assuming that with all the leather and the gimp mask, Bane must also be a member of the BDSM community. This is fun as a comic reader too, and especially someone who was a big fan of Gail Simone's Secret Six, because I think that is the only time ever we have actually seen them explore Bane as a figure with romantic feelings. Everything is going great with Betty too until Bane begins to question the size of his own manhood, which, yeah, he's been taking super steroids since 1993. It only makes sense that he'd experience some sort of negative physical change. Though to hear Bane tell it himself, he only appears smaller because he's just so jacked brother in every other regard. The Bane story and the Harley story actually end up dovetailing together very nicely, as both Bane and Harley look for magical help from Etrigan the Demon when it comes to pleasuring their partners on this most special of night. Etrigan also keeps his rhyming gimmick from the comics, and maybe in my heart I'm still just 6 years old because dirty poems never fail to make me chuckle. Harley figures that if she can't give Poison Ivy the date night she wanted to, then she'll just give her the most unforgettable big O of her life. Of course, this plan ends up backfiring on Harley big time, as Ivy's orgasm ends up vibrating throughout the green, showering Gotham City in pink petals that cause people to go into a sex-crazed state of hysteria. I'm talking cats and dogs living together. Why pink petals and not green petals? Come on, we all know why pink petals. Now, this is all really bad for the city, but it turns out to be even worse for Bane, as his own growth spell ends up negatively reacting with all the HGH he's been using, causing him to grow to Godzilla-sized before getting his libido supercharged by Ivy's burst. Meaning that the big apocalyptic threat in the latter half of the episode that our heroes need to solve involves a massive, all horned up Bane thrusting buildings into dust. I guess this is supposed to be the problematic part of the episode, but then I'm reminded that Koala Man over on Hulu that aired just last month literally had a whole episode built around an alien, turning Earth into a giant phallus and then using it so hard that the Earth was almost destroyed. What I'm saying is, after you see that, a lot of other stuff is just gonna feel like weak sauce. I will say though that it is very funny and endlessly creative all the different ways they try and find to hide Bane's engorged schlong from the audience. How many ways? The answer might surprise you. Also, while Santa Prisca's favorite son can't hang full dong on screen, they can actually show the shadow that his junk casts, which I was just simply not expecting. All of these different stories end up coming to a major climax, no pun intended, at the special Valentine's Day reading of Lord Byron by Brett Goldstein, aka Roy Kent from the wildly popular Apple TV show Ted Lasso. Which, honestly, I'm A, surprised that he voiced himself in this one, and B, surprised that HBO basically did promotion for another streaming service's show. Then again, Harley Quinn as a series managed to avoid not only HBO Max's animation purge, but also their current slate of DC shows purging, so I guess it's a Valentine's Day miracle where anything can happen on the Harley show. Ultimately, it's Clayface who helps Harley and Ivy win the day by growing to kaiju size himself and pelting Bane with all of his biggest turnoffs. Turns out most of them are actually grammar-based. I mean, he is a pretty damn verbose guy in the comics, so as far as I'm concerned, this is all pretty in-character stuff. Oh, and don't worry, the lovable lug Bane actually wins one for a change by actually getting Betty to go home with him anyway. Don't ask how any of that is supposed to work. Also, he's still giant at the end of the special too, which seems to be another problem to be solved in season 4. Also, before we roll credits on the special, Ivy shares with Harley and the audience what her #1 best Valentine's Day actually was, and wouldn't you know it, Harley was responsible for that one too. It was actually during Ivy's first visit to Arkham, wherein Harley showed her true kindness and affection when no one else in the world would, not even Ivy herself. Aw, how sweet. And so that was Harley Quinn's A Very Problematic Valentine's Day special, and as I thought before watching, the whole thing ended up feeling a lot sweeter and more wholesome than it was problematic. Then again, I might just be really messed up and have seen things I can't unsee. You decide. If you like Harley Quinn, you're gonna like this special. The jokes still hit, the characters are rich and interesting, and manage to walk that really interesting line between offering something for longtime comic fans like myself, and also feeling fresh and new for people who are discovering them for the first time. Admittedly, we don't see a ton of development from the cast, but we're once again able to shine a light on the complex and nuanced romance that is Harley and Ivy, which I think is probably one of the greatest achievements in modern television, certainly in superhero animation, and no doubt the reason why it's the bedrock of the show. Basically, they've come so far, learned so much, but they still have a long way to go and a lot more stories to tell. And you know what, personally, I'd love if specials like this became a more regular thing. Let's see what this show can do with Christmas or Halloween, anything to tide me over for season 4. And hey, you know what, if you're like me and couldn't find a date this year, I think you can do a lot worse than hanging out with Harley and the gang. So until next time, everyone, this has been Cape Joel. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps me a lot in this crazy YouTube algorithm game. And until we meet again, everyone, happy Valentine's Day.